All right, let's welcome in the five-time fittest man on earth and the man behind HWPO, Matt Fraser. Matt, how you doing?
Good, good. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for taking the time, man. So you guys just had, I guess I would call it a training camp. We had all your athletes there and were able to throw down in the quarterfinals workouts. What was that experience like for you?
It was a ton of fun. We had all of our athletes, all of our employees in town. So, good sized group. And then we had four games athletes running through all of quarterfinals. We had two of our employees who also qualified, and then two gym members. So it was really fun. The gym was shut down for 3 days, and we just ran these eight guys through, and I think most are happy with the results. But we came away with some great data points and stuff to work on moving forward.
Organizationally, was it just as simple as, hey, let's all just shut it down and go as is, or was there like more of a planned schedule or something you kind of wanted to accomplish as a group for HWPO?
Yeah, the owners of 802, they canceled the noon class on Friday. So we just had the gym to ourselves. They said, it's usually a low turnout, and with quarters, just make it easy for all of us. But yeah, we had heat times, and we just ran it like a competition. Try to stay on track as much as you can, but with that many people and coaches and media crews in town, it's like you have to run on a schedule. Everyone needs to know their job and stick to it.
Not only do you have to manage those logistics, but you have to manage, athletes who are, I don't know if they're at different stages of their training, but might have different expectations, different goals. So how do you deal with all that on top of everything else that you have to deal with?
It actually worked out really well. So we ran 4 heats, so every person doing quarters, could go with somebody else, and everyone just stayed in their pairs for all the workouts. But the first two to go, they're gym members at 802 CrossFit. So we got to watch them go and see their transitions, pacing, all that stuff. And then our two employees went, so Josh and Presley, who are both really fit. Josh had aspirations of making it to semis, but missed the boat. And then we had Catcher and Amanda go, and then Mal and Jay. So by the time Mal and Jay are going, they've watched 3 heats, go through the workout. They've picked up some good notes. So it was a lot of fun. Great group of people. So it was a great time.
Kind of zooming out a little bit on like the quarterfinals tests as a whole, the tests drop and then suddenly you have to, dig into it immediately, start going through strategy, mindset, approach like that with the cohort. What were a couple of the things that you focused on, maybe even just going day by day on some of the tests that jumped out to you and you tried to relay to your team?
Honestly, the biggest thing that we were going over was just, quality of movement standards, going through the rule books. So a couple nights before, I print off all the packets and I go through, highlight, take notes on anything that's unique, starting positions, silly things like, hey, you can't tape and use grips, or you can't use your grips on the deadlifts, where, if the typical rule is that you're fine to use grips on deadlifts, and then you submit your video and get docked, or, you're told, hey, that workout's no good. So, really putting in good effort into that. And then I find that really helps calm the nerves. The open and quarterfinals are so stressful because you submit your score in the video, and then by the time you find out if it's valid or not, it's too late to retest it. So it's really just reiterating to all of the athletes that were here, like, hey, you're fit enough. You don't need to rush. You don't need to blur lines. This is quarterfinals. Let's just have clean runs and just end every workout knowing that there's not a single thing that I'm going to get penalized for. So, I think our athletes got dinged. I think Jay got dinged on one workout for like the last front squat of each set, or something silly, but got through quarterfinals, no major penalties, nerves were good, confidence is high. But yeah, just kind of going through and pointing out to the athletes like, hey, like, focus on what you have control over, focus on your movement standard. But then really just trying to keep the nerves calm and saying like, hey, if you do your best, if you give your full effort, that's all you can do.
Is there a difference in how you would view these workouts if you're competing to how you view them as a coach? And if so, what is that?
I'm always trying to use my personal experience.
Mhm.
to guide athletes through. And so, I obviously the first step is, okay, how would I attack this workout? What type of paces would I be holding? What type of sets, that type of stuff. And then translating it to, okay, given this athlete's specific strengths or weaknesses, what do we have to modify? That type of stuff. But, with quarterfinals, we try to keep it really casual. Um, try try to do every workout only one time, even if the athletes knew, like, I fucked up, I could have gone faster, I could have sped up here or there. It's just like, nope, as long as you have one clean run, we're good. So, if you have to sacrifice some points, that's fine. Because I think all of our athletes were in a spot where they could. And then it's like, all right, let's focus on stuff more down the road instead of
Mhm.
this right now.
Yeah. HWPO has gone through a ton of growth probably since even the last time we've talked to you. And part of that includes like the sheer numbers that you guys have within the company and within the athlete ranks. And that was obviously what you discussed earlier. But for you, as personally as a coach and as a leader of the team, like how have you grown in that area? Because I feel like that also has to kind of precede the growth as a company as a whole sometimes.
Oh my God. I mean, the changes, like the amount of learning that I'm going through is wild. Before, like my job was really, really fucking hard, but it was super simple. It was wake up, train, that's it. It's like every day I know exactly what I need to do. But now there's, dealing with people and dealing with personalities and having tough conversations and making sure that the athletes know that, like, hey, I'm giving you advice or corrections or whatever it is, but like it's all positive. We're always striving for progress. So, it's been a learning curve of, having to deal with other people other than myself. And just trying to keep everyone happy and everyone proud. And, it's a lot of, I take a lot of pressure from it because, we have some top end athletes that are really, really good. And, being a coach, for the most part, it's a thankless job. It's like being a kicker. It's when the athlete does well, it's because they're a stud. When they do poorly, it's because your programming is shit. Um, so just always making sure that, as long as I'm doing it for the right reasons, doing it so that, you know, doing it for the athletes and exclusively for the athletes, then, everyone stays good and happy.
Where do you think the most growth that you've experienced as a coach has been?
Whew, man, that's a tough one. You know, um, you, it's kind of feels strange to say, but it's honestly been just in communication. It's just making sure that what the message that I'm trying to get across is being delivered. Because two people can hear the same thing and take them completely different ways. And it's just there's a lot of people. We spend a lot of time around each other, so it's just making sure that um, everyone knows the intent of what's happening and knowing that, like, hey, like we're here no matter what. Even if you do poorly on a workout, you're not getting banned out of the gym or something. Like, we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
As long as you're trying your hardest and giving your best effort, you can't ask for more than that. So it's just make sure that, they're proud of themselves and happy with, what I've been delivering to them. After that, you can't really do too much more.
Mhm.
And one aspect of that, like coach, I guess athlete relationship is proximity. You have Mal up there in Vermont, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but Jason just moved up there, right?
Yep,
Um,
yep. Hopper and his wife Grace Ann just moved up here a little over a week ago.
Nice, nice. What has been the kind of process for you on, like living in Vermont, coaching them directly versus remotely, working with them? And has there been any kind of system set up for you where you feel like one is better than the other, or even like, hey, this is how I'm going to approach it?
Oh, in-person coaching, I don't think there's any debate. In-person coaching is obviously better. Um, there's a big difference between programming and coaching. And
Yeah.
um through my whole career, people would be like, "Hey, who's your coach?" And it'd be like, "Well, what's your interpretation? What's your impression of a coach? Is it someone that sends me a spreadsheet, or is it somebody that's correcting me every rep of the day?" Um, So, I try to do as much as I can for the athletes that are remote, but, I want them in Vermont as much as possible. And so, we're just trying to put systems in place, tools in place to give the athletes the best chance they have. So, obviously asking people like Amanda and Katrin, hey, I want you to move to Vermont. Well, no, they have lives where at home, like they can't just pick up and leave. So it's like, all right, I want you coming in for extended stays as frequently as possible. Once again, those hotel bills add up. So HWPO just rents a house, and so if any of our athletes want to come into town, it's like, hey, here's your gym space. Hey, here's your house. Most of the time, we give them one of our cars, and it's just like, here, like you just worry about getting here, and then we'll take care of the rest. So right now our gym is in our house, and it's a little bit small for training that many athletes. So, just getting those tools in place to provide a better space for the athletes that they can call their own and have every tool that they need.
When you are dealing with athletes who are remote like that, how, if at all, do you have to alter expectations for how they're going to do throughout the season?
Um, I think yes and no. Like if you're not like with Mal, I'm in the gym with her most days. I'm seeing most reps that she's doing. And so, I'm more familiar with her, so I can probably provide a little bit better advice. When I see a workout get released, I can relate it to something she's done in the past, stuff like that. Luckily the athletes that we have that are remote are incredibly experienced and seasoned. So, we right now working with Amanda Barnhart and Katrin, it's I think if they were new or very young, it would be different. But because they have so much experience under their belt, I can send them a spreadsheet, have a phone call, and be like, "Hey, here's the intent. This is what I think you should do for pacing," that type of stuff. Um, but just I always opt for in person. I think it's great, to have my eyes on them, for them to be able to ask questions, get immediate answers, for them to just be in an atmosphere with other games athletes training. So it's always just striving to get better and better, always.
You mentioned something just a second ago about trying to build the tools and infrastructure from HWPO standpoint to you create the best environment for your athletes. Like with that in mind, you just mentioned that your gym's at your house. Are there plans or things that you're excited to like sink your teeth into and expand and grow to kind of create a more optimal, I guess, scenario for them?
Yeah, I mean, we're something as simple as renting that house. So sometimes it's empty, sometimes there's six people staying there.
Hmm.
But just lowering that barrier of entry for an athlete to travel across the country to come train here. We're in the process of getting a bigger gym. But it's slow, it's painful, but super excited. Hopefully we're in the new space in a couple weeks, and just give the athletes just the best training facility possible.
And with that kind of in mind, it's just seeing kind of the career arc and everything like that, going from a guy that kind of trained in the basement, kind of alone in this scenario, to suddenly, I don't want to say like being a family man, because I do feel like you've always been a family person, but having that bigger net and that bigger circle for HWPO, has that transition been smooth? Is it weird for you going from those two opposite ends of the spectrum?
It was just that transition was just it was just getting used to it. So like right now our gym is in our basement and there's no bathroom. So something as simple as anyone that's training here, when they need to use the bathroom, they need to leave the gym, walk outside, walk around the house, and then come into our house and to use the bathroom. So we're in a very close space, so we've become very tight knit. It's just very homey. We're all very close. But on our end, it's so easy to be like, oh, it's 8 o'clock at night, and Sam and I are trying to relax, and there's barbells dropping, and the house is shaking. So it's easy to see it from my point of view of like, man, this sucks. But then thinking of it from their point of view of like, they're just trying to train. They don't want to have to walk through my living room to go to the bathroom. So it's very easy to see it from your point of view, but then putting yourself in their shoes of like, well, that's not enjoyable. They have to go outside and it's winter, to go use the bathroom. So just trying to get a bigger, better space that that we can show off and the athletes can be proud of.
HWPO has quickly become sort of a juggernaut in this whole training environment. You have Rob Kearney, you got Stallings, you got Matt O'Keefe on board. Like, I mean, you're like a legit big business here. What was the intent when you first wanted? Yeah, what was the intent when you first started this thing?
So when I first started, um, I 100% full-heartedly thought this was going to be a side project. Like after retirement, I was like, hey, this would be fun. I can, I held all these things so close to my chest of what I did in the gym day to day. I was like, this is a great opportunity to, put it out there and help people. And when we launched the pre-sale, I saw the numbers of the signups and I went, oh shit. And and so I remember, like, so we didn't take HWPO in under our own roof for the first year. And before we launched, I remember I was with O'Keefe and we were doing a like photo video, just getting media for the launch. And I pulled O'Keefe outside and I was like, how much? And he was like, for what? I was like, how much for you to quit everything? Like, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be. How much to quit everything and just come work with me full time? And so, it took a while. It took about a year for him to wrap up all his loose ends, but
Mhm.
I thought this was going to be a side project that would just be kind of fun. And then we saw it take off, and I've thought it for years of like, why are other sports not training like this?
Mhm.
Just functional fitness, whole body, high intensity. Like, why are other sports like, yeah, maybe you're not doing the Metcon that the CrossFitters doing, but you can modify it to be sport specific. And so it originally started with Rob Kearney, where Rob competes in the world's strongest man. He's pound for pound the strongest man in the world. And, I've been friends with him for years, used him as a resource for myself. He's 285, he's 5'8", 285. He is a large human. He does CrossFit 3 times a week. He is a
Yeah.
CrossFit coach. He discovered strongman through CrossFit. And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, how perfect is this? We have a strength coach that knows what we're doing, that's familiar with it, does it himself. And then Amy Everett, same thing. Very familiar with CrossFit and the space and how we train. And she trained, obviously trains Matty Rogers, but like when Cody Anderson did his whole thing,
Mhm.
he became one of the strong guys in the sport and also one of the still quote little guys, that was Amy. And so that was a no-brainer. We get along personally. All the athletes love him. And so we just wanted to keep branching out. And so, Scott Stallings, he's known as the fittest guy in golf. And, he had this career changing thing happen where he found CrossFit, lost a ton of weight. And after, I think it was like, don't quote me on this, like 10 years doing PGA Tour, and his career started
Yeah.
kind of dipping down, found CrossFit, and then just boom, took off. And I was like, well, this is amazing. Everyone, like, how many people love golf? How many people want to get better at it, but they don't know how to train for golf specifically? And so we're just like, this is fantastic. We're finding ways to modify the training that we do day to day to be sport specific. And the results that we're seeing are just phenomenal.
You mentioned something that I got to ask you about because I wanted to ask you about this later, but you said a side project. And I get the
Uh-oh.
feeling that you're not a guy who does side projects. Like side projects become obsessions because of the way you're
Yeah.
wired. Is that the case? And if so, why is that?
Why can I not do side projects, or why?
Yeah. Why can you not half ass something? Just be like, I just do that for fun.
Man, I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out. And like when I first retired from competing, it was, all right, I know I don't do well with idle hands, but I didn't want, something that it's like the 14-hour days I'm getting home and I'm away from my wife all the time. We're putting our life on hold, all that type of stuff. But yeah, I really wish I could do, some things for fun, but it's everything I start doing. I'm like, oh, I want to be amazing at this. I want to be the best at this. So, it's a slow process of telling yourself like, hey, you can have a hobby and not be good at it. It's okay to suck at it. Like you can just have fun doing this. Um, and like I probably had like 6 projects lined up for when I retired, like writing the book, podium nutritions, HWPO training, just stuff like that. And I thought I would do 2, get the ball rolling and then move on to the next 2, get the ball and the first 3 that I picked, HWPO, podium, and the book, they all became big projects immediately. And I was like, oh shit, all right, they all worked.
Yeah.
Dang. One thing I heard from Mal's interview that we talked to her earlier. She said that in test 3 specifically, it's getting a little granular, how, in theory it was her worst test, but she said she had a conversation with you where you reminded her like, hey, last year this would have been, a much worse test for you. And there's some growth within that process for her.
What was test 3? The burpees and clean and jerks?
Yeah, the heavy clean and jerk burpee one. That sometimes I feel like, it goes, you hear people talk about how like it's hard to notice if you're losing weight because you see yourself in the mirror every day. And I think athletes can get like that. What is like, and maybe from your experience, what is the way you're able to translate for that for them? Is it just as simple as keeping a ledger for them, or that there's aspects of that emotional and psychological, kind of filtering that you have to put in place?
I mean, in a situation like that workout event 3, it's really just trying to, build the athlete's confidence, remind them, hey, like, yes, you got beat in this workout, but that doesn't matter. Like you got to look at where you came from and where you are now. You can't look at where somebody else is today, and there's going to be workouts like Mal wants to win everything. I think every athlete wants to win everything. But then, that level of maturity, especially in Mal, where before it would have been like talking to a wall. Like she would have just had her mindset of like, nope, I did terrible. That's it. Now, the instant reaction is like, she's disappointed. She set an expectation in her head and she didn't meet it. But you're setting this like random erroneous standard of what you would deem successful and what you would deem a failure. And you can't hold on to that. You get halfway through the workout and just go, whoa, this is a lot more than I thought it was. That doesn't mean you did a bad job. It just means you guessed wrong in the beginning. So it's just reminding, especially on a workout like that with Mal, where it's like, hey, 8 months ago, you would have had to squat clean all of those, or 8 months ago, we would have had to put you on a clock of resting 30 seconds in between every lift. But now, she's, we're only partway through the season, but, she's getting to see some of that progress. And, it's tough to see in the moment, obviously, you're focused on your results right now. But, give a couple hours later and start realizing like, oh, like, so that workout specifically, I think, once she sees the leaderboard, she goes, oh, like 70% of the girls ahead of me are, 5'10" and 170 pounds. And she's like, I'm a fraction of that, I'm 5'3" and 140, it's, so, it's once the emotion leaves, they're able to look at it a little bit more clearly. But prior to the workout, it's just like, hey, these are the paces. This is the strategy. Get ready for this to hurt. You're a stud. Go get it.
Yeah. But where does that switch happen? Because you mentioned like, last year she might have put up the wall. And I feel like sometimes with like the psyche of an athlete, like getting through that wall person to person can be a monumental achievement.
Yeah. It's always progress, not perfection. And it's not an overnight fix. It's like, hey, you've had one way of thinking for the last 8 years. Just because I told you something one time doesn't mean it's going to be fixed overnight. This is a long process. I've been working with Mal daily for a little bit over a year now, and it's been like in the last month, I've started seeing, the progress and the mental growth, the physical growth. It's that way with all the athletes. Jay too. He was a very, he's young and doesn't have a ton of experience, but it's just that day to day. We're looking for is a little bit of progress. Mistakes still happen. Tears still fall every once in a while, but it's all about progress, not perfection. Nothing's going to happen overnight. I look at my career, like I was still trying to improve my snatch 20 years into doing Olympic weightlifting. You're never going to be perfect.
Point.
There's always going to be stuff to work on and fix.
To Mal between when you first got her and now?
Oh, she's a whole new athlete. Still has the same drive and desire. But her lifting technique is damn near flawless. Just her mentality going into workouts, her confidence is a big one. Just being very confident who she is and what she's capable of. But there's been things that have been tough, and there's certain things that are easier to fix than others. But it's just constant reminding yourself, like, all right, she's better than she was yesterday, and that's all we're looking for.
I know the primary focus is, making your athletes better, obviously, as a coach and as a brand. But is there some sort of, I don't know, selfishly some gratification in seeing the systems and the things that you put in place for yourself start to work outwardly in other athletes? I think, a lot of times, having an N of one is important for, the self. But as you start to grow that pool and see it a little bit more successful, I don't know, is there gratification there?
Yes, I mean, watching any of our athletes that we've worked with is wild. I mean, at the games last year, I think there was 14 events and then an award ceremony, so I cried 15 times. It's just like you become so attached and just so involved in their lives, especially when they live here and you're talking to them every day, you're spending all day every day with them. There's a great sense of pride when Mal finishes a workout and she can see the improvement and feel great about it. Walking out on the competition floor with confidence, it's huge. But at the same time, it's like, all right, well, I'm not really doing this for myself. But just seeing the growth of the athletes, the growth of the company, the interest of people from the space asking if they can have a job, that's gratifying in the sense of like, okay, we must be doing something right. If we're still growing, people are still asking if they come on board. All right, we're doing something right. And so it's just always trying to do the right thing for the right reason. And, doesn't always work out, but most of the time it adds up over time.
Yeah.
You mentioned trying to improve your stats for 20 years. So you're obviously always trying to get better as an athlete. How are you trying to get better as a coach?
Man, just always talking to more and more coaches. Last year before semifinals, we had the underdog crew come up. So Danielle, Brandon, and then the Dallin Pepper was up here as well. And I got to spend a lot of time with the coaches and just picking their brains. Whether it's as simple as something of like, hey, how you run your strength work and conditioning work complementary, or hey, your athlete has been crying for the last hour. What's the best approach for making them smile? It's just trying to talk to other people that are doing the same thing, have already done it, doing the same thing in another space, and just learning how do you build a relationship with your athlete? How do you communicate with your athlete? Stuff like that. So it's just always asking questions. And then during competition, after competition, having a breakdown with every athlete of, hey, what did you like? What didn't you like? Like the first time I put Mal through a competition and I'm like, hey, I have a very specific way of warming you up. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? And so it's just always having that open line of communication, making sure that the athletes are confident that like, hey, no matter what you tell me, I'm going to respond well to it, or I'm going to, have a conversation about it, not just shut you out. So it's just opening up those lines of communication, making sure the comfort level's there, and then just always, trying to read up, talk to other people, and just always trying to get better at my craft.
And I know you were doing bodybuilding for a little while. What sort of fitness pursuits? I know obviously healing up a little bit, but any other like fitness pursuits you have in the foreview for you?
So I actually was getting back into like regular training, and I set up this goal of I wanted to back squat a certain number, and I hadn't really squatted in probably 2 years, like nothing consistently. And so I did 5 squat workouts over 3 weeks just to find what is my current 1 rep max right now. And shockingly, I hit 12 pounds off my lifetime PR, and was like, great. So all right, I have a number to work off of. Now I can start a squat cycle based off that number. And 2 weeks into the squat program, blew out my knee, doing jujitsu. So yeah, I'm laid up pretty
Did
good. My
Amanda do it?
crutches. No, no.
Okay.
No, so it was, I've been playing with it a little bit, but just never made it a priority and never had it on schedule. And then after I went down and rolled with Amanda Nunes, I was like, why am I putting this off? I fucking love this. I want to do this on a regular basis. And so I got home, I put plans in place, got a membership, got a coach, and my third session with him, total fluke freak accident, tore my ACL, MCL, LCL, and pulled my meniscus off the tibia. So yeah, that sucked.
So again, not
But
half-assing anything, just went all the way in on
no.
that one.
Yeah, so I think I'm 3 weeks post-op right now. So I'm starting to put some loading back on my knee, but I'm able to move around a lot easier now. So, getting back in the gym, doing what I can. I'm obviously very, very limited. Even something as simple as like I want to do stuff with dumbbells. Well, I can't carry the dumbbells. Somebody has to carry them to me or put them in place. Um, so yeah, my fitness right now is I basically for 2 weeks I did about 8 hours of PT per day, and now I'm pulled back to 4 to 5 hours of PT per day. So that's my life. Just sitting on the floor, going through getting this fucking knee rehab.
So before you got hurt, how does fitness for Matt Fraser look now as opposed to fitness for Matt Fraser when you were, killing everybody on the
Oh,
competition floor?
it was a fraction of what it was. It's still training, still like going hard. Um, but my life is different now. Back then when I was competing, I had one sole, task to complete in the day. And now I have a laundry list every single day. So, when I'm healthy, it's get in, get your shit done, and then get on with your life and spend time with your family. But we have a great crew here. Jake Marconi, Josh, Mal. We all throw down together, and it's a great time. So I'm really excited to get back in there. But yeah, my fitness has been on pause for a little bit as this ACL fixes itself.
Oh man. And as far as like, we're middle of the season right now. Quarterfinals just wrapped. Semifinals in was it like a month and a half maybe. What's kind of on the docket, kind of looking forward for HWPO, whether it's camps, expanding programs, things like that, things that you're fired up to, that you maybe have more time to do now since you don't have to train as much.
Yeah. I mean, going forward, like I am through the roof excited for our new space. I wanted to provide something for anyone that wants to be a part of the crew. I wanted to give them the training space that I wish I had. So just trying to create a one-stop shop that, hey, if you're serious about training CrossFit, this is where you need to be. We're always looking at expanding into more programs, working with more people. I've had some fun working with some high level athletes in other sports that have come to me and they're like, hey, the strength and conditioning that I'm doing, from my coach is trash. can you give me something? So, trying to learn what each sport, what movements apply best to what they're going to be doing on field. So, it's just constantly learning, talking to new people, trying to pick their brains on, what they've accomplished through their career and how they got there, what they wish they did differently. It's a ton of fun, when I'm passionate about it, they're passionate about it. So it's not often that you meet somebody that loves something and they don't want to talk about it all the time. So I just try to use that to my advantage of like, all right, you like football? Tell me about football.
Yeah, and speaking of like not necessarily football, but Scott Stallings is playing in the Masters this year. He had a little weird situation with his invite that got sent to the wrong person. But
Yeah.
Are you guys going to go down there for that? Are you going to be able to at least catch some of it down in Augusta? Sean's dying, by the way. So
I would like to. We went out to the Waste Management Open, and
how was
that
that?
was crazy. So that was my first.
So it's hole 16,
golf
right? That's
experience.
nuts.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
so like we're on the green as hole 16's happening, and it's it was crazy. It was my first golf experience. So like, we're walking all 18 holes with Scott, and he's like, "Hey, just a heads up, like if you come to a different competition, it is not going to be this vibe. Like this is a party." I was like, "Okay, cool." But that was a wild experience. Just seeing like, all right, this is your world, and just seeing, what are the do's and don'ts, and what's the field of play like, and it was pretty cool. So it'll depend when the Masters are and where it is in the season, but I would love to go. I'm sure. I think you can probably put your money on the fact that O'Keefe is going to be there.
Yeah.
Yep. No question. Yeah. So the only environment that can compare to that 16th of Waste Management is the 17th at the Players, the Island Green. But I don't even think it's.
Yeah.
I think the 16th is still a little more like hedonistic than the Island.
It got pretty wild this year. I think a couple guys pulled their shirts off and got a talking to by the PGA.
My final question to you is this: like, do you miss competing at all?
No, easiest question of the day.
Why not?
No, when I did it, I was very well aware that like this is going to end. Because I had a whole weightlifting career. I've seen other athletes in sports that, they want to keep going, but their body is failing, or, it's getting tough. And I wanted to enjoy it for what it was, enjoy it for the time being. But I always knew, I'm like, this isn't my life. Like I have no expectations that I'm going to be on this floor at 40 years old, still trying to do it. So I just wanted to make sure that when I did it, I was happy with what I had done in my career. I was proud of what I did in my career, and now it's just time to move on to better things. I think a big part of it was that I didn't want to half-ass it. I didn't want I didn't want to. I'm trying to think how to say this, like Sammy says, like through my competition career, she was like, it was a very lonely 5 years for me because you were at the gym. And I never wanted, I think I'd be mortified if I ever had a child say that to me of like, I miss seeing you, or you're not around, anything like that. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to help other athletes pursue their dreams. I wanted to, try to build some companies, build relationships, spend time with my family. It got to the point for me that I had done what I wanted to do in the space, and then I was just ready for the next thing. So there's times like I see the joy that like Mal will have like at a semifinal or something, or a games event where she just smashes it, hit the finish line, lets out a victory scream, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm so happy for her. But I'll dig back in the memory bank and think about, the special moment where I did that, and I love it for what it is, but I don't wish that I was out there doing it.
Yeah, that's great, bud. Well, listen, thanks so much for taking the time. We always appreciate it. Best of luck to you and the crew, and hope we cross paths maybe in the semifinals.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, take care of that knee.